Rick Grimes has been the main character in The Walking Dead for a majority of the show's existence. The Grimes name has been carried on by Judith and later RJ as well. From a small-town sheriff to a legendary leader of a group of communities. Most believe him to be the hero of the show, but were all of his actions truly heroic? If we were following a different group of people and Rick and company came along, would we see his actions as still heroic? I believe in some situations he did what he had to, like biting out the throat of Joe, the leader of the Claimers, in order to save himself and ultimately save Carl from being raped. That was justified, no doubt in my mind, but there are some situations that could have been handled in a different way. In this video, we'll be going over some things that Rick did that could be seen as being villainous. What's up, everyone? This is the Walking Dead universe, and today we'll be talking about the 5 most villainous acts of Rick Grimes. Let's look back to Season 2 on the episode Clear. Rick, Michonne, and Carl were going back to their hometown to gather supplies and, more importantly, guns. It always comes down to guns. At this point, Rick was going through one of his crazy phases. After the death of Lori and Carl having to put her down, they just had an encounter with the governor, so trusting strangers was not high on the priority list. But as they are driving, they drove by a guy in an orange backpack. If you remember this guy, he was desperate. He was begging for help, even chasing the car down to continue to beg. Rick decides to leave him to fend for himself. Now on their way back, this guy was killed by walkers and Rick grabs his orange bag and moves on. I have always wondered what was in the bag. Now, like I said earlier, Rick had reason to be cautious in taking in new strangers. I get that. But what if he could have been useful? What if he could have been a doctor? He would have eventually died anyways because all doctors seem to die. But if it wasn't for complete strangers taking in Rick and the group, Carl would have died. Should Rick have extended this same attitude towards the backpack traveler? Now, the second thing. What about Season 5 when Rick beat down Pete the porch dick? Yes, he definitely deserved that beatdown, but it was in front of everyone. Elderly and children as well. But nothing can be as bad as getting a baking lesson from Aunt Carol. But in all seriousness, that beatdown was not even close to as bad as what is on the other side of those walls. What happened after this is more what we want to discuss. Remember, Rick and the group were not longtime citizens of Alexandria. They hadn't even been there that long. Everyone knew they were different because they came from over the wall. Don't forget that right when he said if they had to take the place over, they would. That was right when they got there. He knew it would be easy to take over Alexandria by force, but that's not what he ultimately wanted. But doesn't that sound familiar? Isn't that exactly what Shane told Andrea, that they would need to tie up Rick and Herschel so he could have control of what happens on the farm? So after Rick beat down Porch Dick, he starts ranting and yelling, still full of blood, waving his gun around in the air and at the crowd of Alexandrians, telling them their way of doing things was done. Luckily, Michonne knocked some sense into him. Again, Alexandria allowed them to get out of the harsh world beyond the walkers when they were facing starvation. Remember, they did just eat that pack of dogs. Rick was later the leader and was able to prove himself, but this was not an instance where he showed great leadership. Still not convinced? What about the time Rick killed everyone at the Savior's outpost? You have to remember, at this point in time, Rick and the group had barely any interaction with Negan or the Saviors. Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham ran into a small group on the road when heading back home. Daryl blew up Little Timmy and the Dick Brigade when their nearly found rocket launcher. The only other info they had was what they learned from the hilltop. But based off of that, they went to the outpost to take out the Saviors. Dale would not have approved of this move. So Rick and the group come up with a plan to get in the outpost at night when everyone is sleeping, kill the Saviors and Negan, and take all their weapons and supplies. Sound familiar? Well, you might be thinking this was justified. Negan and the Saviors would take control of groups by violence so they could provide for them with resources. They were just trying to get the upper hand before this happened. Well, look at it this way. Negan would find a group, kill one person, and take their supplies. Rick decided to go in, kill all the saviors while they were sleeping and take their supplies. Just something to think about. Plus, I don't remember Rick making spaghetti for any of the saviors like Negan did for Carl. I'm just saying. Another cool scene, when Glenn and Heath are done killing 2 saviors while they were sleeping, one of them has pictures of those that have been killed by Lucille hanging on the wall. They were the only 2 to see these, almost a cool foreshadowing of what was to come for Glenn. Now on to Season 8, when Rick and Morgan go after a group of Savior prisoners that had escaped. Rick and Morgan ultimately get taken prisoner and tied up. When they wake up, Rick and Morgan need to find a way to escape and get back to their people. Rick thinks of a great plan and tries to bargain with their captives to let them go. Rick informs them that walkers are on their way and they will need help fighting them. That if they untie them, they will have a place in the community after. The Saviors seem convinced and release Rick and Morgan as soon as the walkers get there. They begin fighting together, and Rick is even saved by one right before he was bitten. After they start killing the Saviors, one by one. They literally killed the ones that just saved them after promising them they would be part of the community. You might think, well, they did bad things, they couldn't be trusted. This would probably be true for most of them, but don't forget Alden was once a savior before as well, and he has become a great member of the communities. Last, we will look at how Rick banished one of them closest to him. We are talking about Season 4, when Rick banished Carol. Yes, getting banished is not as villainous as killing, but let me explain. Don't forget, this is the world of The Walking Dead, and the dangers that lurk beyond the prison walls was always great. Carol wasn't an enemy trying to kill him. She was part of the group even before Rick was. She was banished for killing Karen and David, who were infected by the sickness. Was she right in brutally killing them when they could have possibly gotten better? Well, no, eliminating that chance was not right, but what she was trying to do was save more lives by not allowing the virus to spread even more. She was ultimately trying to keep the whole group safe from the virus. Well, those are the 5 times I believe Rick did villainous acts. Let me know down below if you agree with these being villainous, or was Rick justified for what he did. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe as well and hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time I post a new video. And I will talk to you guys all in that next video.